There are over 11,000 pawn shops across America, and that number is steadily growing. But one pawn shop stands out from the pack, and not only because of its cable TV show Hardcore Pawn, but also because of the colorful and sometimes explosive family behind the buying, selling, and lending. Les Gold and his kids have definitely made their mark in Detroit as well as in the reality TV world, but how will Detroit's bankruptcy impact their business and their community? Joining me now in studio is the owner of American Jewelry and Loan, the star of True TV's Hardcore Pawn, and the author of the book For What It's Worth, Business Wisdom from a Pawnbroker, Les Gold. Les, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me on your show.
So why don't we just go back in time a little bit? How is it that you even got into this business?
Into the pawn business?
Yeah.
My grandfather, my popsy, opened up, he was a rag picker, came over from Russia. And he was a rag picker who decided to go into the pawn business. So in 1940, he opened up a company called Sam's Loan Office. From that, it went on to be, he had my mom. It's my grandfather through my mother's side. And the business grew exponentially. And then in 1960, they tore down Skid Row where the store was born. And then they moved over to Michigan and Trumbull near Tiger Stadium, and the rest is history. The
rest is history. So you have some Russian roots. I'm Russian. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. I know that now.
Have you ever been to Russia?
I have, as a matter of fact.
Where'd you go?
We were in St. Petersburg.
Oh, wonderful.
We took the whole family to St. Petersburg. What a wonderful experience that was.
It's a beautiful place.
Oh my God, mind blowing.
Okay, next time you got to go to Moscow, though. That's my home.
That was a little ways away from there.
All right. And so, this is not only your pawn shop now. I mean, you said that obviously it goes back in your family, but your kids are a part of this too. Do you want this trend to keep going?
I do. Well, actually, I left. My father ended up working at my grandfather's store. I left him when Seth was born in 1981, and that's when I started American Jewelry and Loan. I started it in a 1,500 square foot facility, expanded it. Now we have a 50,000 square foot. I'm fortunate enough to have Ashley and Seth work with me, and if I can have generations of Golds to come, I would love for them to be in the business.
And what's it like working in Detroit? I've never been to Detroit, I have to admit, but I've heard it can be a little bit of a tough city.
Well, Detroit is a very tough city. It's going through some hard times right now. We'll get through it through the perseverance of each and every Detroiter. But it's been a real ride throughout my lifetime. I'm born and raised in Detroit, and I'm a native Detroiter, and I absolutely love the city and would never leave it.
And so, all eyes have been on Detroit recently because it's the largest U.S. city to ever file for bankruptcy. And were you shocked? Were you surprised? I mean, there was talk that this decision might have to be made that was coming, but did you really think that it would come down to it?
Well, this has been evolving for a long time. 60 years ago is when they say it started. 40 years ago, it really hit. What has happened is, when the car companies stopped manufacturing cars, Detroit lost about half of its population. We went from almost 2 million to less than 700,000 inhabitants now. Am I surprised? I'm not surprised. Detroit has to do something, and I think between the governor, the mayor, and Kevin Orr, who is our guy that suggested going bankrupt.
The emergency manager.
The emergency manager. I think that they're making the right decision, and Detroit's coming back. What you don't see is the revitalization of downtown Detroit. All they do is talk about the bad things, the bankruptcy. What you're not seeing is the evolving development that's going on in downtown Detroit. It's absolutely spectacular. It's bringing people back to the city. There's a lot of computer companies going back downtown. They're bringing a lot of new people to come live in the city, and they're building lofts, and they're building restaurants, they're building bars. It's coming back. The bankruptcy may have some effect on that, but Detroit's going to come back.
I've heard that from so many people too. I've hosted entire segments, because some of the reports that we see coming out of the city are that basic public services, things like calling 911 if you're in an emergency, that the average response time of the police is almost an hour long, that it was 58 minutes, that people are waiting for an ambulance to come, that not all the traffic lights and stoplights are working. And do you ever get frustrated that it's all negativity that we see being reported on? I mean, at the same time, I guess it's highly representative of a bit of the decline that we see in certain major sectors, that used to be huge business sectors within the United States and the changing landscape.
Good news doesn't make the news very often. It's always about the negative points. And the negative points are, yes, it takes the police 50 plus minutes to get to go on a run. It takes EMS a couple hours to get there. Recently, 911 system was down. So we needed something. And I think that between the governor, the mayor, and the emergency manager, Detroit's going to come back. Detroiters are very resilient. There is no doubt in my mind Detroit will be one of the premier cities in years to come. We have a beautiful skyline. You know, the Detroiters go to Chicago to go see the skyline. We're going to have people from all over the country coming to Detroit to see the new Detroit. I'm so excited.
What do you think about this this prospect of selling off the fine art in Detroit in order to be able to get some of the money back?
I did a show on another station regarding that. You know, here's the issue. Who's going to put a value on it? That's the question. You could have
There's always an appraiser out there somewhere,
Yeah, there's
right?
always an appraiser, but what does that mean? You know, it means, and we'll talk later about the book, that it's only worth how much somebody's going to pull out of their pocket and spend for this item. So I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's going to come, and I'm sure hoping that it's not. The DIA is a very important part of Detroit culture, and we needed to bring people back into the city. Besides the people and the tourists coming to American Jewelry and Loan, we need people to come to the city, spend money, and make the city a viable option.
So don't give away or sell away all of your fine art.
Heck no, we shouldn't sell any of it. It's taken us a long time to accumulate it, and I think it's one of the premier places to go in the city. When you go to the DIA, it brings tons of people to the city. Don't get rid of it.
Yeah, and I can certainly imagine how that would be something that would be, very sad for the city to get rid of a collection like that too. And so let's get into the book. You brought it up. For what it's worth, what was the goal there?
The goal was to talk about my journey. I made my first sale at 7 years old. The evolving of me being a pawnbroker, opening up American Jewelry and Loan into a 1,500 square foot facility, opening up American Jewelry Now, which is a 50,000 square foot facility, and our journey to get it on having a reality show, which is the #1 show on True TV. We're always in the top 5. Now we're an international show. So that's one of the main things that I wanted to talk about. But then I wanted it to be different. So I brought up negotiating. Negotiating is a very important part of business. And then I wanted it to be different than just a business book. So whether you're an employer, an employee, you're going to benefit because you're going to learn each and every day when you wake up, how bad do you want it? Employers are going to learn how to run their companies a little bit better, I hope. Employees are going to know how to ask for a raise and work a little harder, and they're going to understand the importance of business.
And so what are the responses been like so far? You know, do you have people writing in and saying, has your advice changed my life? I did get that raise because of what you told me about negotiating.
It's very funny you ask. Besides that, it became a #1 New York Times bestseller.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. We were just at the Pawnbroker Convention where Seth, my son, just won the award of being Pawnbroker of the Year.
Wow.
The apple fell far from the tree when it came to that. And so this husband and wife who run a dozen pawn shops came up to me and thanked me for writing the book and made it mandatory for each and every one of their employees, of their 100 employees, to read the book because there's so many valuable lessons. The lesson about negotiating. Here's the lesson on negotiating. If you're a salesperson, bring out the emotion in the buyer. If you're a buyer, try to keep that emotion away because you're going to pay too much.
Poker face, right?
Poker face. Knowing your bottom line, and you know what? When the deal isn't right, being able to walk away. Those are the three key points in the book.
Let's talk about the show because the show is a huge success. You were just telling me it's #1 in Australia. It has
right.
gone international. Congratulations on that too. And
Thank
so,
you.
how did this get started too? For you to be able to say, yes, I will open, part of my life up, my business and my family up to doing a reality TV show, to having cameras in our faces all the time.
When the producers came and approached us, they called Seth, and Seth says, "I'm not interested." He came into my office because they said, "Would you like to do a TV show?" And of course he said no. And so he walked into my office. He said, "Dad, since you're still the president of the company, I should bring it to your attention. They want to do a television." So I go, heck yes, let's do it. So we had
No reservations at all?
Absolutely not one. Few reasons, and then we'll get back to that. I wanted to open up the pawn shop so that I could show the legitimacy, to take the stigma away from what everybody thought pawn shops were, dealing with drug addicts, dealing with stolen merchandise. I wanted to show people the legitimacy of the business. And so I've accomplished that. So now going back to the show, it took 4 months for me and my wife to convince Ashley and Seth that we should do the show. And finally I said, listen, with or without you, I'm going to do the show. We did a sizzle reel, which is an 8-minute show, and True TV had purchased it. We did 2 pilots. It was shown at 11 o'clock at night, December 21st, 2009. They never thought it was going to work. And so, surprising to them, there was 1 million viewers. They called me back the next day and said, would you like to do 8 more shows? We go, sure. Now we're 120 shows into over 3 years, and we just got picked up for another season.
Wow.
So as long as they bring the cameras in, we're doing Hardcore Pawn.
So no regrets? Or, do Seth and Ashley ever say, wish we hadn't been talked into this?
Now there's no regrets. They're very happy, and we're all lucky to have this in our back pocket, that we have really accomplished such a huge task to be an international reality show that draws millions. We have 110 million people in the United States that have seen the show. And it also brings them into the store. So we have a huge amount of tourists that come into the city, that spend money, besides in our store, that spend money in the city, and it's a great accomplishment.
So you're not only helping your business, you're helping Detroit. We have some clips, actually, of the show. And so first, let's take a look at some of these sellers that come in.
My mother has a friend who gave her this early century compass. Back then, of course, they didn't have the nautical, the GPSs.
I thought this was one of the coolest compasses I have ever seen. It had brass around it. It was really in immaculate condition.
I got some really expensive stuff.
Show me.
Some old liquor bottles. Some old albums. Stamp book. Don't you think he worth something?
No. A whole lot of nothing.
Oh, what do? How do you break people's hearts sometimes when they come in with, compared to a nice antique, beautiful compass and then just a bunch of crap? How do you tell them no?
Well, you know what? It's a difficult task for me, like I talk about in the book with this emotion. As people bring merchandise in, I have to keep that emotion away because, people come in with all kinds of stories. People are sick, people are dying, they have all kinds of things that they're going to tell me to bring that emotion out, and I have to be hard as a rock most of the time, and as you see on the show, sometimes even those stories get to me, the real ones. And I give extra money, so every deal that I make is a business decision. I have 50 employees that work for me. I have a building that we have to pay rent and lights and heat, and so it's really on business decisions.
But every now and then you got to break down, right? How long does it usually take you? I mean, because I don't know how much changes in the editing process to put the show on air to decide if you want something or not.
Let's pretend you come to the pawn window.
Okay.
You hand me your bracelet.
The bracelet or the ring or something?
Take your pick. It makes no difference. You put it in the dish. We look at it within a minute. We'll tell you. So it's not a long process. We're not calling in the experts. We're the experts. So whether you bring in memorabilia or antiques, we know all about it. We'll make the decision relatively quickly. We do it 1,000 times a day. So it's not a long process.
You know what you're doing. All right, we have another clip, and these are some of the buyers that come in, which can often be interesting characters. Let's take a look at that.
You smelling it?
Yeah.
Does it smell pretty?
Have you smelt it?
I mean, it's not alive.
That doesn't mean it doesn't have a scent. I seen her eyes across the room. So cute. I had to come talk to her.
What's the stuff for?
Home defense.
What? Is that what
The
you put around
zombie
your yard?
apocalypse is coming.
I'm sorry?
The zombie apocalypse is coming.
The zombie apocalypse is coming.
It's coming. I'm pretty sure.
Are you ever just scratching your head after a sale like that, wondering what in the hell these people really want with this object?
You know what? When those guys came into the store, I couldn't imagine what they were talking about. But in my line of business, I don't care what the reason is. As long as they're spending money and buying stuff, I'm good with it.
All right, simple enough. All right, I don't want to hog all the time because we have someone else that has some questions for you. So joining us in our Google Hangout, we've got Rain Hirsch, who's a television personality and a 20th century design expert. So hi, Rain. Thanks for being here.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Les.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Rain, take it away if you have anything that you would like to say to Les or some questions for him.
Yeah, Les, I was just sitting there listening to what you were saying and talking about people that come through the door and some of the emotion that's involved with bringing things in. And, and I sympathize with you because I'm in that position very similarly in that with the emotional attachment, you really, there's no number you can place on that, that will match up with what it's worth to them. So it makes for a very difficult thing. My question for you is, with all the things that come in and out of your store, do you get jaded because you see so much? I mean, as you just got done saying, you see 1,000 items a day. So are you jaded, or do you actually still find anything interesting, and do you collect anything?
Well, I used to collect. When I was younger, there was so much stuff that comes into the store that there wasn't enough room in my house to collect. As you get older, it doesn't mean that much to me. My wife and I are big glass collectors. I'm big into, Lalique and St. Louis and, brand names like that. But people bring in all kinds of stuff. If I was a collector, if you look at the back wall, we have a lot of sports memorabilia. We have a lot of antiques. But one of the main things that I want to comment on what you were saying was that emotional attachment. When people come in and they bring that emotional attachment, there is no amount that I could ever pay to close the deal. One of the things that I talk about in the book is leave your emotion at the door. Whenever you're selling, you go to a garage sale and grandma left me this bowl. And this bowl is only worth $1, but to you it's worth $10. You're just going to take that bowl and put it back in your house. So one of the things that I talk about a lot is make sure that you leave that emotion at the door, because if you're emotionally involved with it, don't even think about selling it.
Yeah, and that's probably the hardest part, too, is leaving that emotion at the door. Rain, we have time for one more.
So my other question is, when I watch the show, I see that there's a lot of diamonds that are brought through the door. And I was just curious, is it you or somebody else in the store that's a certified gemologist? You could make a very, very huge mistake buying diamonds that if somebody there isn't knowledgeable in diamond buying, I mean, a 1 carat diamond in one clarity is valued completely different than another diamond in a better color and clarity.
For the last 50 years, I've been looking at diamonds. I have sent my managers, Seth, Ashley, to Gemological Institute of America, the GIA. That is the foremost appraising company in the world. You're right. A shade off in a 1 carat diamond could cost thousands. Or taking a moissanite, which is a man-made diamond, and thinking that it's a real diamond. We don't get beat. We deal with thousands and thousands of diamonds. And if you ever need one, call me, because we have great deals on them too. But yeah, we make sure, and I make sure that every one of my appraisers is certified. Now, when you watch the show and you see those girls at the window, I now have guys and girls at the window, but when you see them appraising jewelry, they're just doing the gold. Anything in a 1/4 carat, which is 25 points or larger, they're going to call one of the experts in, and that's either myself, Brian, Ashley, or Seth.
All right, so you're the guy to come to for the diamonds.
Heck yes.
Let me pull up one more comment from the chat room here. Is Mary McClock says, I want to know when we'll see the rest of the show from when Les collapsed at the store on the show 2 weeks ago. The following week, the show was a repeat, so I'm waiting to see what made him sick to need to go to the hospital via ambulance. Glad he's okay as he's here.
Thank God I'm still alive.
You're still here, right?
July 30th, 9 p.m. Is the new show. We have a brand new show opening, which I've seen already, and it's pretty good. And the show and everybody.
That's it. You're not going to give us any details. They have to wait.
I will. I didn't die, so that's a good thing. I'm still here, stronger than ever, and I'll just tell you, the surgery was very successful. Thank God I made it through, and it's been a heck of a thing. Even I'll tell you the truth. We watch the shows on Tuesday night also. I see them in advance. my granddaughter was watching the show and started crying when she saw the ambulance come and take me away. Is Popsy going to die? Well, Popsy didn't die. I'm doing fine.
Well, we're definitely happy to hear that. And one last comment here. Roland Green says, I read your book. You should run for mayor. You could put Detroit on the right path. Any political aspirations?
I do not. The aspiration was, like I said, to write the book and to get that emotion out of my readers. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful experience that people really learn something, and that's what we were talking about earlier, that people understand that it's not just an autobiography. My life it's okay, but the wisdom that you can get from reading that book is just priceless.
All right, Rain, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
And Les, thank you so much for being here in studio. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Keep watching the show.
That's right. And everybody can watch the show Tuesdays at 9 on True TV. But in the meantime, don't go anywhere. There's a lot more coming up at HuffPost Live.